families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to tonight's episode of Families Divided TV. In tonight's presentation, Dr. Kelley Baker is going to explore some of the hardest questions that targeted parents most frequently ask her. How targeted parents can avoid feeding into the alienating parents' agenda by psychologically taking care of themselves, and how the concept of ambiguous loss may be helpful to alienated parents who are faced with the only option of walking away. This is an incredible presentation, and I'm glad she did this for us. We're going to show you this presentation in just a minute. Before that, I want to remind you again of our upcoming fall conference, October 5th and 6th. We're going to be showing you a video prior to Dr. Baker speaking, and it tells you all about it. You can still register, and I really encourage you to do so. It's going to be a great one. And I want to remind you again, it is not going to be on our Families Divided TV YouTube channel. This is strictly through the Zoom. So please join us. We hope that you will. We're going to be right back in just a moment after these important messages with Dr. Kelley Baker. Hello, everyone. I'm Elaine Cobb. I'm founder and president of Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights. I'm also founder, host, and executive producer of Families Divided TV. I want to invite you to our upcoming fall conference, which is virtual and international. It will be the very last one that we ever have, and it's going to be an incredible 2-day event, and I hope you'll join us. Normally we do the topics, where it's just one topic specifically. But this time, I said, you know what, we need to branch it out a little bit. And so I asked you to send in what you thought were very important topics to you. And so that's what we're going to be using and speaking on. We have two keynote speakers. Our first one is Dr. Edward Crook. And he, as a favor to us, we had asked him if he could do a study on grandparents who have never met their grandchildren. And there's never been a study on this. It's always in court or in the legislature if you've had some kind of a relationship with your grandchild. Well, hello, there's many of us out there who have never seen their grandchild, including myself and my husband Chester, who we've never seen our granddaughter Dare, who's now 13. So this is an incredible, extensive study that he's taken over a year to do, and we've recorded it now. And this presentation, I will tell you, is off the chart. It is incredible. It's awesome. I mean, I could just keep going on and on. He's going to give us much information, and he's also going to get this peer reviewed, get it ready to be got out there with lots of different places, and it's going to help. We'll be able to use this in court. We'll be able to use this in the legislature, and it is huge, very, very important. So I hope even those grandparents who have met their grandchildren will also. He's also going to talk to you as well. So you're not going to be left out. So if you are a grandparent, you do not, I repeat, do not want to miss this conference, because this is really, really great. So please, be there. His presentation is entitled The Eraser of Grandparents from Children's Lives. We're going to also have Bill Eddy as our other co-host and our keynote speaker. And he's going to be speaking to us on court trends, the trouble with letting the children decide. Some states and court systems are considering letting children as young as 14 years old have the right to make decisions about whether to have a relationship with one of their parents. He's going to be speaking to us about this. And, Bill Eddy's with High Conflict Institute. He's written numerous books. He's got a new one out now, as you know. And you're not going to want to miss this one. This is a really good one. It's important that we know about all that. We're also going to have Dr. Joshua Coleman, who works with alienated and estranged parents of adult children. And he's very well known out there all over the world. And he's going to be speaking to us about reaching out to your alienated or estranged child, the do's and don'ts that you need to be doing. I get emails all the time from you guys wanting to know, what should I do? Even on our Families Divided comments, I get all that. He's going to let us know right here. So you want to be able to be there for that too. Dr. Sue Kornbluth will be presenting as well in this conference, and she's going to be speaking to us on managing personality disordered co-parents who alienate their children. Now, we haven't done a whole lot on co-parenting. We may have 3, I think, episodes on Families Divided. So this will be huge for those of you that have to co-parent and you're dealing with people who have major personality disorders. So Dr. Kornbluth is going to share much with this on that. And Dr. Mary Alvarez is going to be speaking to us on a very interesting topic. It's going to be called parental alienation, the toxic stress in your child's brain. And nothing is more important than our child and what they're going through this. They are what matters through all of this in the world of alienation. As we know, alienation is child abuse. And she's going to share some very interesting things. She's done a great study on this, so you're not going to want to miss that. Chris Turner is going to be speaking to us on trusting and understanding agents of court guardian ad litem, amicus therapists, psychologists, parenting facilitators, and court-appointed professionals. She's going to give us some information, because it can get really overwhelming to us as we have to deal with these people. She's going to give us some great advice on that as well. And then Dr. Kelley Baker is going to be speaking to us on the therapeutic interventions for parent-child contact problems with teens. We've never, and I'm sad to say that, we've never done anything with teens. So this one's going to be huge. And Dr. Baker's really doing an intense study on it, and it is going to be good, but it's really going to help you as an alienated or targeted parent and how to deal with this with your teenager. We also have Melanie Gill with us, and she's going to be speaking on Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. We deal with a lot of this in court, with lots of things that are said that are not true. And, Melanie's really been through the mill over there, so to speak, in the UK. And she's going to be helping us in sorting out this reimportant info. Also, Dr. Kathleen Ray from Canada will be speaking to us on understanding the realities of a reunification program, dispelling common misconceptions. There's a lot of lies and fake news out there on this, and she's going to share and help us to understand what is factual and what is false. And so you don't want to miss this one either. Then Attorney Chris Turner will be with us. He's going to be sharing secrets to litigating parental alienation allegations. Chris is one of the best attorneys, and I've dealt with many over the 13 years, and he truly is like at the top for me. He really cares about you guys, and first and foremost, he cares about you. And he's, a lot of attorneys, I've got to say, sadly, are out for the bucks, but Chris isn't one of them. And he's going to be sharing a lot with us on this, so please don't miss out on it. Also, Randy Fine is going to be speaking to us about confronting the mirror. Do narcissists face their own reflections? That is a very interesting question, and Randy will be sharing with us on that. Also, we have with us Dean Tong. He has a really great presentation on false allegations of abuse, navigating the 3-ring circus, and he's really knowledgeable on all of this and dealing with CPS and all of them. So he'll share much info for you and how to deal with all of that. And then to me, this is really the most important part of the conference, I think. Caden's Law has pretty much destroyed or tried to destroy our families. Well, we're going to have with us Dr. Lynn Steinberg, Yakov Achenbaum, and Robert Gaza with us. And those three are going to be doing a panel discussion. And they all three have all different perspectives on all about Caden's Law and what to do and how we can go around it and how we can defeat it and help get our families back together in ways that we can. Many of you in states really need to be paying attention to this. I'm going to tell you that as a parent and as a grandparent, if we don't stand up and fight for our children and our grandchildren, we can just about wrap it up and forget about it. So you can't sit back and say, oh, I wish they'd come help us over here and all that. Get up and get it done. Help everybody. You don't have to be, a college degree or any of that. You've just got to have the heart and the zeal that you want to get up and fight for your own kid and your own grandkid. So be a part, make it happen, and come and learn from this. You can submit your questions, and we're going to have questions for all different presentations and especially for this. So we want you to do that. So don't miss out on that, please. That's going to be really important. I also want to emphasize that this will only be, again, through only the Zoom, Family Access Zoom. That will be the only way you can be a part of this 2-day event. But I also want you to know, and this is very important, if you cannot make the 2-day event, that's fine. We'd love for you to be there in person, but we understand everybody's lives are busy. So take the time and register, and you have between that following Monday, the 7th of October, till the end of December to view it. We'll have that for you available. And here's the secret. If you do register and you do come to the event, you can watch it as many times as you want. So that's going to be a special that I'm giving my gift to you that way, because this will be our absolute last conference that we ever have. So you will have plenty of time to view it as many times as you want. And I hope you will take advantage of it and do just that, because we feel like these topics are so very important. And we want you to be a part of it. We're also on Sunday night, we're going to be having, after the conference, we're going to have from 7 to 9, a time where you can meet together and share your testimonies. If you want to share your stories and stuff, that's fine. And we're also going to be making a support group out of that as well. So come for that. And then on Saturday night from 9 p.m. until 7 a.m. Sunday morning, we're going to be having what we call the one-on-one chat room, which I lovingly call the Chatty Cathy group. These people have a great time at these. We've done these every international virtual conference. They get together, and I do not understand how in the world they can chat half the night online and get back in the morning for the conference, but they're doing it. But it's a great time to really open your heart, share your experiences, give each other ideas on what's important to you. We do everything we can to make this the best it can be for you and being supportive to you. I really hope that you will come and you will join us for this very important, incredible event. And also, I will be announcing to you something very special at the end of our conference. So please come, please register. You've still got time, and look forward to seeing you there. Take care. God bless.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. parents learn to use our popular biff and ear skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hi, and welcome everyone. Today's segment is going to be about the psychological work of the rejected parent. And I call this part one because there are other aspects of this topic that I'm happy to talk about. We just have time today to take a portion of that topic. And so we're going to look at my agenda for today is just a brief introduction about me. We're going to define and discuss the concept of ambiguous loss and how it relates to the experience of parental alienation for the targeted and the rejected parent. We're going to look at Pauline Boss's 6 therapeutic goals for dealing most effectively with a situation of ambiguous loss. And we're going to talk about her first goal of finding meaning, the actions related to finding meaning for the experience, and then the barriers to finding meaning. Briefly, my name is Kelley Baker. I am in the Central Texas area, Austin. It is the best place to go if you decide to visit Austin or Texas. I have been working with families in divorce and separation for over 25 years as a therapist, as an evaluator. I've provided education for legal and mental health professionals, and I also provide expert consulting services on topics related to high conflict divorce and parental alienation. My current professional focus is developing training for mental health professionals on working with parental alienation, parent-child contact problems in general, as well as working with families in high conflict divorce. I was recently appointed to the board of the Parental Alienation Study Group, which I'm very excited about. I have served on the board for the International Council on Shared Parenting. I am a member of AFCC, and I am also a member of the American Counseling Association. My license is in counseling. My PhD is in developmental, social, and personality psychology. Okay, so let's talk about how the concept of ambiguous loss relates to the experience of a targeted or rejected parent. When I began working in the area of alienation, I enjoyed most my work with the alienated parent. However, I began to realize quickly that many of the questions that alienated parents deal with have no clear-cut answers. I've given some examples on this slide that if you are an alienated or targeted parent, you will probably recognize. Some of them are, for instance, should I send text messages even though they ask me not to? Should I enforce visitation even though they want to refuse to come? Should I send a birthday gift because the last time I did, they sent it back to me? These kinds of questions, I felt like as a therapist, I needed to have an answer for. I needed to be able to tell my clients exactly what they could do in order to maintain connection with their child and give them an answer that would work out, that would actually be a success. And I grew frustrated in that work. And as time went by, I realized that the work for me as a professional was much like the work for the parent, which was to learn to deal with the ambiguous nature of the problem. There were no clear-cut answers. Many times the things that we thought would help did not help. Sometimes they did, and sometimes we did have information from the past about behaviors that or actions that could be taken by the parent that could make a positive difference. But a lot of times we didn't have conviction that those choices were going to result in anything different. So I turned to the research and the clinical work on unresolved grief to give me some uh, ideas about how to better help the parents I was working with. And so I realized that the work really was learning to live with an unclear situation, learning to live with a situation that did not have a guarantee of of an outcome. And so as I um, explored that area, I found that the characteristics associated with other types of losses that are ambiguous applied directly to the experience of the alienated parent. For instance, families who have suffered a loss of a member of their family to Alzheimer's, where the person is still physically present, but psychologically they are not there. And another similar experience would be that of a family that's lost somebody in the war, or someone who's missing in action. There's no body to verify their death, and members of the family continue to live with the hope that they will return. And these characteristics associated to this kind of loss have been really helpful to my clients who are struggling with alienation. And so some of those characteristics are that there is not any closure that's guaranteed. There's no identified end. There may be an end to a certain phase of the process. For instance, if a child ages out and there's no more litigation to be had. There's an ending to the litigation phase, but there's no verified end to the relationship. The child is still living and active in their life, and the parent knows that. And so there's also no rituals tied to providing closure for the parent, as there would be if the child had died of natural circumstances. Um, Rituals are important in our grief process because they provide um, closure for us, and they, in some way, give us permission to move on to a new phase of life, a new way of being, to conceptualize our life in a way that does not include the role that we used to play with that person. But in the case of alienation, um, there are not usually rituals to memorialize the fact that a child has decided to not have contact with one of their parents, and the entire extended family often grieves the loss with no ceremony or um, ritual to acknowledge that. Also, alienated parents can be very isolated. Being an alienated parent, I have found from the clients I work with, is a very lonely experience because the uh, majority of the population does not understand alienation. Usually, family members have a hard time grappling with it. And those who do understand it don't always acknowledge it in a way that's supportive. So, isolation in the grief experience is another characteristic of being a targeted or um, rejected parent. There's also a lot of shame and guilt that can go along with that and can be associated with a condition of being isolated. You don't talk about it because people don't understand it, but things that are not talked about usually end up festering into more shame and more grief because you don't feel like you feel like, in a way, if you were able to share it, then it wouldn't be something that you needed to keep to yourself. And so there's also the process that I find with alienated parents where they go back over the years of their marriage, the years preceding the separation and divorce, and second guess themselves. And should they have stayed longer? Should they have left sooner? Should they have demanded that the kids get into therapy sooner? And so a lot of that second guessing themselves and going over the decisions that they made in the past can also lead to a lot of shame and guilt. So then there's also this sort of dual experience of the person being present somewhere and also being absent that is characteristic of ambiguous loss and also is very typical of an alienated parent's experience. So it could be that there is no contact at all, and so there's a physical absence, but the child is still very much alive in the parent's mind and in the parent's thoughts. And so there's a psychological presence of the child for the parent while there's a physical absence. And grieving that kind of situation is difficult, and it's unclear a lot of times exactly how one's supposed to do that in the most healthy way. In another situation, you might find that the child is still having to adhere to a parenting kind of schedule, maybe because they're still young enough to be required to do that by the court. And so there is a physical presence, maybe on a weekly basis even, but there's a psychological absence. So the child comes to the parent's house, but then immediately goes to their room and closes the door and stays there for most of the weekend, or refuses to come out for dinner, or rides in the car to school in the back seat with no conversation whatsoever. So there's the physical presence of the child, but there's the loss of the relationship and the attachment and the psychological bonding between the parent and the child. So these are characteristics of ambiguous loss in general, but I think apply directly to the alienated parent's experience. So the 6 therapeutic goals identified by Pauline Boss for people dealing with this kind of loss are finding meaning, tempering mastery, reconstructing identity, normalizing ambivalence, revising attachment, and discovering hope. Today, we're going to talk about finding meaning. And at the end of this presentation, I will give you the citations for her books. And she was both a researcher and a clinician. And you can explore on your own what these other goals, these therapeutic goals entail. And I would also be happy to answer any further questions. So what does finding meaning refer to? It refers to the process of making sense of the experience. So how do you explain it to yourself? How do you understand and make sense of what you've been through? How do you explain it to other people? What have you learned from it? How do you make sense of it? In situations of alienation, there's often an entire family system that is grieving. And so finding meaning may include how the family comes to understand and conceptualize the loss of the child. It may also be that each family member has their own worldview about the situation. Um, and in that case, each family member needs to be allowed their own process and their own process for finding meaning. And yet the family can also pull together with some sort of united conceptualization of what it is they've been through. Actions for finding meaning are naming the problem, which refers to accepting that it's a situation that has an unknown outcome. So it helps people to deal with the uncertainty just by naming that uncertainty is the problem. So at some point, the problem may not be how to get the child back, but it may be how to live with the uncertainty of whether the child will ever return. Dialectical thinking is another action that can help in finding meaning. And what that refers to is a very flexible way of thinking where you see things as both and rather than either or. You're able to maintain two opposing experiences, the presence of someone and the absence of someone at the same time. So examples would be the glass is both half full and half empty, or the child is both present and absent, or I am moving on with my life and I am still hopeful that my child will return. That type of thinking can be helpful in finding and meaning and giving a narrative that helps you to move on, but also helps you to acknowledge your loss. Belief systems, religion, and spirituality can be extremely helpful to people dealing with trauma and loss. And it's no different with alienated parents. Relying on faith, having a worldview that includes a higher good has been shown to be very helpful for the alienated parents that I've worked with. Forgiveness is another action that can be taken to help find some meaning. And this can be approached in very small steps. So with alienation, uh, a rejected parent can feel betrayed by many people, especially if they've been in a long, protracted legal battle. They can feel betrayed by the child. They can feel, of course, betrayed by the ex-spouse, but they can also feel betrayed by a judicial system and by the professionals that they've hired to help them. So this process of forgiveness may be a very long process. I have found that working with alienated parents, it's easiest to begin with the forgiveness of the child. And that happens by moving the parent from anger and a sense of betrayal into a place of compassion and empathy to understand what it must have been like for the child, how they were in a no-win situation, the pressure that the other parent put on them. All of those things will help the parent move to a place of forgiveness. And then another action is extending small good works or towards people who have who the parent feels like has betrayed them. This can be quite a stretch for alienated parents, which I completely understand, and have seen some success in starting this particular action by extending good efforts and good works towards other parents who are alienated. So for instance, if you are a rejected parent that has been through a lot of litigation and you know of another parent who's just starting the process and feeling lost, it helps to extend help to those parents. That's a really good way of beginning this action item of engaging in small good works. Rituals are another area that I think alienated parents need to explore on their own as well as with their family. How are you as the rejected parent going to continue to celebrate the child? Are you going to continue to celebrate the child? As a family system, is there a way to symbolically recognize the child on special days or when the family gets together to celebrate holidays? And is everyone in agreement that that would be a productive thing to do? These are all decisions that individuals and families get to make for themselves. There really is no right or wrong. It's what helps you move forward and create meaning out of what has been a terribly traumatizing experience. And so the other piece, though, about rituals that I'd like to bring up is that sometimes when I'm working with an alienated parent, they will avoid holiday celebrations in order to not be asked questions about the divorce or about the children. And I've found this to lead to more isolation and more depression and more hopelessness. And so there needs to be a way to continue to participate in holidays and family get-togethers and also feel safe enough to do so. And so on your own or with a therapist, figure out how that can happen, so that you don't find yourself isolated from even your own family system. Another action item is recognizing that there is sometimes a need to sacrifice for a greater good or love. And with alienated parents, I've rarely found one that doesn't at some point come up to the crossroads of asking themselves, is what I'm doing fighting for my child causing more harm than it is good? Again, there's not really a right or wrong answer to this, but it is usually a question that alienated parents end up asking themselves at some point. And when a parent does decide that the well-being of their child is being threatened more by litigation or by their attempts to stay in contact, and they decide to pull back and 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 hope that things resolve themselves, or wait till the child's older for another time to try to connect. Part of moving on and creating a narrative that helps lead to greater health and more productivity is remembering why you did that, remembering that you made that choice um, as a way to serve a greater good for your child. Another action item is perceiving suffering as inevitable. And so this is not to gloss over suffering in any way. It's actually more about not avoiding suffering. So acknowledging the pain that you've been through and the incredible sense of betrayal and the sense of injustice is all a part of your healing process. Being able to feel outraged at what has happened and the unfairness of it all is a part of your healing process. But to stay stuck in that suffering will not contribute to your long-term healing. And so one way to accept that your suffering is what it is to recognize that suffering is a part of human experience. And that will help alleviate some of the feelings of victimization, and will help you to move out of feeling victimized and into a more proactive place of healing and moving on. And then the last action item for finding meaning is maintaining hope and keeping hope in a realistic place that allows you to always believe that there can be a resolution to the experience that you've had, and that you will see your children again, and that your children will figure out what happened to them, and also going on with your life. So those are the action items for finding meaning. The barriers to finding meaning are hate, revenge, secrets, and disillusionment. So if you find yourself consumed with hatred and revenge, you are not in a place to begin the process for finding meaning. If you are a therapist and you're working with a client who is still consumed with the need to get revenge, um, they are not in a process, in the place of beginning this process for finding meaning. Um, and so recognizing that is important for you as the parent as well as the therapist when looking at implementing these therapeutic goals into your healing process. Secrets fester and usually lead to more shame and guilt. So that's why they are a barrier to finding meaning. However, with alienation, parents are wise to be selective about who they share the details of what they've been through with. Just because what I've mentioned earlier, which is many people wouldn't even be able to understand it, and so they wouldn't have the ability to respond in a supportive way. But additionally, it's a very private experience, and it's a very vulnerable experience to talk about. And so that's not something you just share with anyone. Uh, so it's important to think about and think through the answers you might have to people in different categories of your life about how your children are doing. So, for instance, you, um, and I would want you to do this so that you would not tend to isolate. You need to maintain some social connections. And if you're trying to avoid those questions completely because you don't have answers to them, then the isolation is not helping you either. And so, thinking about what you might say to a colleague if you're going to go to the holiday Christmas party, the person you see them 3 times a year at these functions, and they know that you had kids and they know that you were married. So maybe having an answer that's very general about the kids doing okay in school or they're away in college, seem to be liking their college experience versus a work colleague that you see more frequently on a weekly basis who has a little more information. And the answer to that question about your children might be very different. It might be a little more detailed. It might be something about the kids are having a really hard time with the divorce. We all are. We're still working through it. Um, I'm hopeful that we get to a better place. It might be something like that. And then having your very close group that knows everything about what you've been through and that you trust completely, that you can tell the whole story to. You've got to have a few people in your life, um, more hopefully, but at least a handful of people that really know what you've gone through, because keeping it a secret and keeping it to yourself will not allow you to move on. Disillusionment refers to just a sense of hopelessness that that you began perhaps with a lot of hope that it was going to the problems would resolve themselves, and then after a certain amount of time and energy you got to a place of emotional numbness and apathy. You've got to move out of that um, to be able to move on, otherwise it will keep you stuck. um, some final tips and takeaways from our talk today are: tell your story. Find a group of people that understand your experience, that you can trust, that can understand what it's like to have gone through the things that you've gone through, and talk about it. Um, Study people who have overcome and endured hardships and trauma and continued to thrive. Much of this information comes from Viktor Frankl's work. He was an existential psychologist who survived the Nazi concentration camps and went on to help other people in his clinical practice endure um, uh, hardships and traumas and continue to thrive. Put away self blame. I'm not saying that you, in your process, your therapeutic process, your personal process, that you shouldn't question how it is you maintained that relationship for so long? What was it that was attractive to you about that person, in order to not make the same mistakes again? That's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is just beating yourself up with blame and the inability to resolve the situation when the situation was created by many more people than just you. And you did the best with what you had at the time. Finding a silver lining is not meant to sound like you need to be a Pollyanna, or you need to always wear rose-colored glasses, or not acknowledge that there was a huge injustice that was done. But it does mean finding what is positive that's come out of this. What have I been able to contribute that I would have never been able to contribute to the world without this process? Or how do I feel much more confident in some things? What have I been able to do that I wouldn't have done otherwise? Don't give up hope and don't stop living. Continue to explore the things that are exciting to you, things that are interesting to you. You were a person before you were a parent. You still had activities you enjoyed outside of parenting when you were a parent. So remember, your child needs somebody who's healthy and happy to return to. Thank you. Pauline Boss's books that I used to help me with this presentation are listed here. There's 3 of them. I encourage you to buy all 3 and read them. They're all really good. And here is my contact information. You're welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions or if I can help in any way. Thank you very much.
Next week on Families Divided TV, Dr. Kelley A discusses grandparent alienation and the difference in coping as a grandmother and grandfather.